Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. Floral in summer. Groundbreaking. I'm going to do a review of Louis Vuitton's fragrance Mille Feux. Feux. Such a weird feux. 1,000 lights, but also reminiscent of Mille Feuilles, which is 1,000. Well, anyway. You know who you are. I'm not allowed to say your name, but thank you so much, sweetie. One of my subscribers sent me this little sample of Louis Vuitton's Eau de Parfum Mille Feux, as well as, and I've showed this in the video, my little Louis Vuitton miniature agenda paperclip. Adorable, made with a real Louis Vuitton canvas. Look how cute it is. It's super tiny, you can't really see it. But it's in another video. You can see the other video where I showed the unboxing of it. Now, okay, are you ready for this, guys? So let's spray it on. A lot comes out. Wow, it's intense. I have it here already since 30 minutes, so I'm kind of going to analyze the dry down here. Here we have the opening notes, but before we get to them, let's just say that, how is this his surname? Beltrude. Jacques Cavalier Beltrude is the nose behind Mille Feux. Actually, it's the nose behind all of the 2016 released Eau de Parfum fragrances by Louis Vuitton. And this one in particular, unlike the others that I have reviewed until now, is pleasantly surprising me, I have to say. And there's a game going on in this fragrance. First of all, the word game, to me personally, maybe to a French person it's not a word game at all, but to me personally it sounds like a word game of sorts between, you know, like 1,000 layers, mille feuilles, like you have like the particular type of croissants that are made with that type of pasta or dough. And then you have the 1,000 lights version, because if we Google the translation of mille feux, it gives us in English 1,000 lights. Now, I don't get the lights in here, but I do get texture, and I get layers, and I get this weird game. And why do I say weird game? Let's get to it straight away. The top notes are bergamot and raspberry. Then we got the middle notes, rose, jasmine, iris, saffron, and osmanthus. Then we got the base notes, moss, sandalwood, patchouli, orris root, and leather. Everything that, you know, is earthy and dark and deep and almost cloying is in those base notes. And then we have that raspberry opening up everything with the bergamot. It's a very elegant raspberry. I don't really sense it that much, but it's there. But it kind of gets covered up by the saffron. For even though the saffron is the middle notes, the saffron and the iris, the powdery touch that you're going to smell out of this immediately, that's the iris. And the orris root is the root of the iris, which is in the bottom notes, in the dry down. So you have this doubled up iris, doubled up powder, and the orris root is very leathery. And the orris root adds itself to the leather, which is also present in this fragrance. The leather then adds itself up to the moss. The moss, there must be some chemical substitute for it, because you can't use natural moss anymore in fragrances thanks to the IFRA regulations. Whatever. Anyway, so we have the orris root and the leather kind of playing together. And then we have the sandalwood and the patchouli, which are kind of warmer hues of depth. You kind of paint warmer hues of depth with them. So you begin with this bergamot raspberry. You know, the bergamot, the fruit of it is, it's almost like lime, and that's kind of that acidy, kind of spritzy opening of it with the raspberry, which is sweet but can also be sour. And then we go into that jasmine and that iris, and then that bonds with the bottom notes, which is the orris root and the leather, and then the leather bonds with the sandalwood, and then the sandalwood is there with the patchouli, and then we have that moss, which I don't know what sort of substitute they got for it. But it is very pleasant, very powdery, very, very French, very Parisian to me, you know. It's like a very clean boudoir. And let's do the dry down. In the dry down is where we have this interesting, to me, resemblance to Guerlain fragrances. Now, I haven't to date, as I'm filming now, I have not reviewed a Guerlain fragrance yet, but I will get to them. And a lot of you have been asking me to do it, and I will get to them sooner or later, I promise. But we're starting to mention Guerlain more and more, and in this case, Mille Feux does have that. It's not as complex as a Guerlain fragrance, as a classical, you know, not these modern, fresh, whatever, concoctions they make to just make a quick buck for, I don't know, teenies and people who think they need to smell clean and fresh and inoffensive all the time. No, we're talking Guerlain from a period where when you spray on one spray, you smell for over a day. You spray on one spray, you smell for over a day. That's the Guerlain we're talking about. And we're talking about this heavy, powdery, and cloying type of Guerlain, which we love. Almost oriental in a way, but even prior to the famous introduction of oriental compositions within perfumery, Guerlain was still heavy and deep, almost suffocating in a way. Now a lot of their fragrances have been toned down. All of them have been reformulated. Even Shalimar is not what it used to be. So you get hints of that opulence of days long gone. You get those hints also through the bottle shapes of Guerlain fragrances. But we're talking Louis Vuitton here, and we're talking about Louis Vuitton that already had fragrances in the past and then discontinued all of them. Louis Vuitton that is now trying to come back to the market to reestablish themselves with this kind of edition, like every other luxury brand has been doing until now, to create their kind of boutique exclusive range of fragrances that all have the same bottle, just labeled with different names, but they all have, Hermès with the Hermessence, Chanel with the Les Exclusives, Dior with the Privee line, which now is called the Couturier line or whatever it's called now. They keep changing names because Demachy is a mess, keeps like changing his mind and wanting more for himself. And then we have the same for the Yves Saint Laurent. Now Yves Saint Laurent is exaggerating because they created two exclusive ranges, of which the first exclusive range is now available not just in special places anymore, so they're making a mess. Dolce & Gabbana have their special only in boutiques available edition. So, all of them have that. So Louis Vuitton is coming relatively late to the game. And then Beltrude, Jacques Cavalier Beltrude, was called in to create them. Now, until now, each and every one of these fragrances that I've smelled do not give me Louis Vuitton vibes. I'm expecting more the spirit of travel when I smell a Louis Vuitton fragrance. And it could be the spirit of travel to the different parts of the world where all of this amazing luggage can help you go to. That's how I would have visualized these perfumes. That's how I would have created them, I have the feeling that all of these perfumes, including this one, smell like, okay, we're based and rooted in Paris, France, or not Paris, but in France, because most of these come, the ingredients come from Grasse, part of the fields that also Louis Vuitton bought, not just Chanel. But, and then we're going to carry these French fragrances, very snobby thing if you think about it, to the rest of the world. Almost like, the Christians tried to kind of, kill whoever on their way did not want to become a Christian in other countries, and were considered animals because they were not civilized. It's kind of a similar approach because it's like taking everything that is very French and then exporting it to the world. Now, I know that also the Louis Vuitton luggage and everything, the whole concept of it is very French, but I have this feeling when I see Louis Vuitton luggage, I see it in all parts of the world. I see it as something that travels in a beautiful way, manages to be everywhere, you know, and it's amazing, and it adapts, and other cultures have adapted it to their own needs. Hence, that one of the reasons why we have a lot of copies and replicas out there of the famous monogram canvas, which is a disaster economically speaking for the brand, but it's very fascinating from a social, cultural point of view to see then, you know, all of those weird experiments. I'm not talking about the replicas that are one-to-one copying the Speedies, the Almas, and the so-ons and so forths. I'm talking about when we have cultural appropriation, this nasty word that nobody wants to mention or use, you know, nowadays, because heaven forbid we were to, you know, I was just checking out a Jean-Paul Gaultier book prior to filming, and I was like, oh, wow, I don't know, 2001 or 2, he made this gorgeous haute couture dress that was very Native American inspired, you know, and I'm like, well, he could have done it then. Today would be, everybody would be screaming cultural appropriation, you know. It's whatever. I hope that this whole stupid, you know, fashion of kind of just finding passive-aggressive ways to attack people and their creativity, that will pass one day, and that we're going to get the hell over it and move on. So what I find really fascinating is the cultural appropriation from all the rest of the world of the French design. So when the Louis Vuitton monogram canvas begins to be altered, you know, the LV becomes some other letters or some ornaments or designs, and this canvas is cut to form a bag that isn't even within the catalog of Louis Vuitton, and then is added to maybe another brand. I've seen a replica of a Christian Dior bag with a Chanel logo, but the double C's were like G's from Gucci, and then there was the V from Valentino at the bottom of the bag. It was insane, and I thought it's amazing. Somebody really put in all those brands together to make one bag. I mean, when things become so blatantly and overtly fake, they transcend just the replicas. They become like art to me. You know what I mean? So this fragrance will not be copied. This particular, for the entire range of the Louis Vuitton perfumes, are not going to receive cultural appropriation from the rest of the world towards a French product. Because they are so closed in themselves, they're so unflexible, they are so self-indulgent, that they do not allow any space to anybody to really penetrate them and make them their own. This one is perhaps an exception to the other ones I've reviewed until now, but just a little bit of an exception. Why? Well, because the composition, you know, juxtaposed to the composition of the other fragrances that I reviewed. I'll put the links in the description box down below so you could check the other Louis Vuitton fragrance reviews I've done. As a difference to those, as opposed to those fragrances, this one has a nice blending of all of these elements. So it's very pleasant to smell. A problem I'm having with it is similar to a lot of new releases nowadays, is that the opening is more interesting than the dry down. The dry down is still good. I'm enjoying the dry down. But it's very weak. It becomes very, it's very close to the skin. So we have all of these heavy ingredients like leathers, orris root, patchouli, sandalwood in the base notes, and this fake moss. And yet it doesn't really stick. It stays warm and close to the skin. Very pleasant. It smells super elegant. But I don't see myself traveling to India, you know, wearing this. Or traveling to Japan wearing this. I see myself wearing this in some decadent mansion outside of Paris. And that's the flaw of this perfume. Because Louis Vuitton is not supposed to be Paris or France centered when it comes, yes, when it comes to the production and the heritage and their pride, sure. All y'all's French out there, just keep all that pride to yourselves. It's all good. You're the best in the world. Yeah, we know it. But that's not the point here. The point is you want the world to be able to imagine themselves inside of that pattern and that structure and that elegance and that beauty. And the Louis Vuitton fragrances fail in that respect because they do not let you penetrate them. And it's already a problem if you have to penetrate a perfume. Because a perfume is supposed to invite you in, lure you in. And once you're inside of the fragrance, you're supposed to modify its DNA according to your visions and the dreams and the imagination that it stimulates within you once you're wearing the fragrance. It's an interesting symbiosis, really. It's a symbiotic relationship. You live and the perfume lives thanks to one another in the moment you're wearing it. Because it's like when you're listening to music, you put on, your headphones, you're walking through the city. I used to do this when I was much younger. I don't like to listen to a lot of headphone stuff while I'm out and about because I'm more and more appreciating the sounds surrounding me that are naturally there or by accident there, because I find that music manipulates me too much, manipulates my mood, my way of walking. Fragrances do it in a similar way, except, they don't cut off one of my senses. They don't cut off my ears. I always want to be alert and awake and know what's surrounding me sound-wise, because the sounds are related to actions happening around you physically. But the fragrance kind of does not cut that sense off to me. It doesn't cut any sense off, because I can still smell the rest of the world as well. I mean, I use perfume sometimes to not smell too much of the rest of the world, but, heaven forbid there was a fire or something going on, I would still smell it, even though I'm wearing a fragrance. Now, this one is a little bit weak when it comes to the dry down, but it's beautiful. But like music, manipulates you, modifies your way of thinking because you kind of fall into that song. Fragrance does a similar thing. It lures you in. You're supposed to like its vibe, its note. That's why we say, a perfume has notes, just like music has notes. And they vibrate, and then you have these like spectrums within, and then you have a whole lifespan of a fragrance. You have the birth, the development, the growth, and then slowly the fade out and the death. The Louis Vuitton fragrances in general do not let me participate too much within their growth and development. Like all of a sudden, from the head note, it kind of just like flips over to the bottom, and there's a little bit of the middle notes there kind of sticking to the bottom notes, and it doesn't let me go through it doesn't take me on a journey with it, to get down to those base notes. But the base notes are very beautiful. I'm loving it. I'm loving these base notes in Mille Feux. But, again, I'm loving them as if they were a Guerlain fragrance. And with a certain decadence attached to them. Louis Vuitton is not decadent. Louis Vuitton to me is very modern. And this perfume is not modern. And perhaps that's why I have kind of an emotional attachment to it, because it does smell like an old world. It does smell like times long gone. It does smell like a tradition that we have lost. We who live in these fast times where we do not care for anything that is longer than 3 minutes. Even 3 minutes is becoming too long. This perfume kind of sets it. This perfume tries to follow the rules of the 3 minutes, because within 3 minutes it hits the dry down, and it's like, okay, good. This is how we smell. This is how the dry down is. So like me. But at the same time, it holds a little bit of value of those old times in a good way, because it smells complicated, and I love when things smell complicated. It also has that negative side to it. It smells snobby, expensive. But that depends how you style yourself and how you go about it. If you let it manipulate you like you would let a song manipulate you while you're walking on the street, and you would start kind of walking to the beat of the music, and you're going to be in your film, and you're going to be like all like, yes, If you let this perfume manipulate you that way, it can go really sour, very bad. You have to fight against it in order for it to really work. And my suggestion is to kind of, dress down rather than up while you're wearing the fragrance. Let the fragrance down, let the French have their moment in the sun, and you could be more humble. Like, you humble yourself down and how you're dressing and how you could just wear a regular t-shirt, shorts even, and then this kind of powder quality of the iris and the orris root type of majestic French scent, and contrast that majesticity, God, that word doesn't even exist, with a humbled down version of yourself. I think in that case, both you and the fragrance stand a chance at creating a symbiotic relationship and creating that positive vibe. Oh, I just hit the microphone, sorry. So that would be my review, guys. I give it a thumbs up for the dry down, not for the opening notes. Would I purchase it? No, I wouldn't. But I will enjoy this sample. So thank you very much. You know who you are. And until next time, if you haven't already but do wish to, please consider subscribing to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Leave me all sorts of comments in the comment section down below and what your thoughts are on this fragrance if you have smelled it already, because I want to know your thoughts and opinions as well, of course. And no matter if you liked it or didn't like it, we never give up on love. Love you guys. See you soon. Take care. Bye.